Hello and welcome back to another episode of Education Technology Professionals. My name is Mr. Customiter. Today we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we've been working in the Python coding series. Today we're actually going to do some graphic design work, and I'm going to introduce you guys to a program called Photopea. Photopea is a lot like Photoshop, except it's a free program on your internet browser. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to make a Photoshop collage by stitching together different photos. Here's my example here, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how to do that. First things first, I'm going to show you guys the photos that we're going to be working with within Google Classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Google Classroom. So here I am in Google Classroom. I'm going to go over to my Google Classroom. Yours might look a little bit different. Mine is the teacher's view. Yours will be the class view. But either way, we're going to go over to classwork, and we're going to click on the Photoshop assignment. Now, in this assignment, you're going to see three different images. You're going to see some fish, you're going to see a background, and then this image here, this is actually a city. We're going to combine each of those images to create a kind of cool collage. First things first, we have to download these images to our computer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my first one. I'm going to click up on the three dots in the left-hand corner, and I'm going to say open in a new window. And then once you do that, you'll see there's a small download button up here. That download button is what we want to press. And now we'll see this download is on our computer. So if I go click on our computers, if I go click on this picture here, we'll see that this picture here is saved onto our computer. Awesome. So let's go ahead and download the other two items here. So I got one, I got two. Download that. And then the last image here, I'm going to go up to the top, go open in a new window, and then press this download button. Awesome. So now all of those images are downloaded to my computer. If I wanted to, I could go to my program files here. I could go to downloads, and I'm going to see these images. I'm going to see these images up here now. If I clicked on one of them, we'll see that it's a coral reef here. And this image here, let's see what this is. Let's open this in Paint. And then we have a SpongeBob city here. We're going to use these different pictures to create kind of a cool collage. Now that we have our images, let's go ahead and go to Photopea and actually check out the program. Here's the link here. I put it inside of the Google Classroom assignment. You can also come up here to Google and type in Photopea. And it's this first one here, Photopea Online Photo Editor. That's the one we want to pick. Cool. So this is our Photopea here. Just to explain what some of this is here. On the right side over here, this is our toolbar. All of these things over here, these are different tools that we can use to edit our photos. Our actual photos are going to end up here. And then as usual, just like in Microsoft Office, we have File, Edit, Image. And then over here are going to be our layers. Once we add some photos, you guys will understand what I mean by our layers. So first things first, let's go ahead and add our first photo. To add a photo, it's just like opening a new document in Microsoft Office. You're going to go up to File, and you're going to go to Open. And now we're going to look for our files that we had saved earlier. We had saved them in Downloads. So I'm going to go to the Downloads folders, and then I'll see all three of these images here. I'm going to go ahead and open these two. Go ahead and open them up. Now, I highlighted two of them at once and pressed Open, and now you'll see they're in here just as different tabs. So we have our fish over here, our water over here. Let me get that last image of the city as well. Let's open that up. And we have our city over here. So what we're going to do is actually take these other two images and put them into the background here. You'll see over here, by the way, this background is our first layer. This is the one layer that we have here. You'll see that if I added a rectangle, I'm going to go over to my rectangle tool. If I added a rectangle right here, you'll see that it actually becomes a new layer that you can turn on and off. So over here are all of the layers. That's going to get really important as we start adding different layers on. Photo selection is basically when you can cut out a small part of your photo and paste it on to other pieces or other photographs. This will make more sense as we do this now. Let's go back over to Photoshop so you can see what I mean. So we're going to head over to this image here with all of the fish. Now, one thing that I want to show you guys, you can actually zoom in on these fish. If you hold down Alt and then use your scroll key, or I'm sorry, if you use your scrolling wheel, you can scroll in and out while holding down Alt. So now I can get a better image of these fish. Now I want to go ahead and select one of these fish, and I want to put it inside of this picture here. To do that, I'm going to go over to my toolbar, and we're going to select this object, or this tool here. This is the object selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Now this is just one way to select. If you hold down this button here, you'll see there's actually multiple ways to select. We'll use the quick selection tool as well. But for object selection, this is a pretty neat tool, because all you have to do is highlight which object you want. So let's say I want this fish right here. Make sure that this plus sign is inside of your object. And then when I let go, you'll see that it actually has this kind of highlighted. This dashed white and black line, that's how you know if your image is selected. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over to my Move tool. And now I'm going to go ahead and click on my selection. I'm going to click, and I can actually drag it around. So we basically just cut this image out of the picture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it out completely by pressing Control X. Now you'll see it's completely gone. And then I'm going to head over to my other image, and I'm going to go ahead and press Control V. This is pasting what we had just cut out. So when I press Control V, we'll see that we just had our fish pasted here, and he's added as a new layer. Now another thing, we can move this fish around, but let's say we wanted to make him a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. To do that, you're going to go ahead and select the layer that you want to make smaller or bigger, and you're going to go up here to click on Transform Tools. Now you'll see that this has a small box around it where you can rotate our fish, we can move our fish around, we can elongate our fish, and we can even make it a little bit smaller if we want it. Let's do that. And then when I'm done with that, I can press my Transform Tools again, and it's going to deselect. Now, if I wanted to, I can make a whole school of fish using this one image. I can go to Duplicate Layer, Duplicate Layer, Duplicate Layer. So now I have 4 different layers. And it might not look like anything has happened, but if I actually go to this layer, and I take this fish, and I go to this layer, and I take this fish, you'll see that there's actually 4 different fish in this vicinity. So we have our small school of fish here. Let's go ahead and select another item. Let's go ahead and get a shark. We can use the Object Selection tool again, where you highlight it and you make sure the plus is inside of that object, and then that'll highlight the whole thing. Or another thing we can do is we can use this quick selection. I'm going to go ahead and press on that. Now, if you see up here, you have these minuses and these pluses. When the plus is selected, it's going to add parts to your text. When the minus is selected, it's going to take away from your image. So I'm going to go to plus, and I'm going to add parts to my selection. I'm going to use my brackets to make the circle smaller or bigger. So I'm going to use my brackets, my right bracket, to make it really big. Make sure I get it all picked out. Maybe too big. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight our shark. I'm going to zoom in really close, and I want to make sure that we want to get even his teeth as well. So I'm going to make it really small, and I'm going to get those teeth there too. There we go. Some teeth over here, some teeth right there. Looks like it's loading a little bit. And now I can move my shark around, and I can see he's got his teeth and everything. Looks good. I'm actually going to cut him out as well, so I'm going to use Control X. And then I'm going to go over to our ocean screen again, and I'm going to press Control V. And there we go. We have our shark. One thing I want to talk about using Photoshop is how Photoshop is what's considered a raster editor. A raster editor basically means that Photoshop has a bunch of really small pixels. This is in contrast to what is called vector images, which aren't pixels as much, but they're actually solid objects. But if we go back to our photo editor and we zoom in, we'll see that this actually gets very pixelated. That's because this is a raster photo images. So raster images have these pixels. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and actually change one of these pixels. You can change all of these pixels. I made them deep red, and now you'll be able to see that. Or if I wanted to make it really small, and I could just change 1 or 2 pixels. But either way, this is a raster photo editing software. So we're going to actually alter the actual pixels here. Kind of neat, in my opinion. So just to go over what we've done so far, we've learned how to use Photopea's quick selection and object selection tool to cut out different images and put them on top of other images. We've started to learn the layout of Photopea using layers. We started to learn about what raster images are. The last thing that I would like to show us how to do is show us how to alter the color and the brightness and the saturation of these images. Now, this is really easy, but it can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it can be really fun to play around with. So let's go ahead and go back to Photoshop so I can show you what I mean. So now that I have all of my images here, one of the things that I can do is I can actually change the contrast or the brightness or the colors of any of these layers. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my backgrounds layer for right now. And I'm going to go up to where it says image and then adjustments. Now this adjustments is where you can do any of these things. You can change the hue, which is color or saturation. You can change the vibrance, the exposure, the curves, the levels. For right now, let's go over to hue and saturation. And you'll see that this window pops up. Now hue is another word for color. So when I go and I run through these different hues, you'll see that the background starts to change different colors there. Pretty neat. I'm going to make mine kind of a light green. You can also mess with the saturation, which is how bright the colors are, or if they're really dull. So let's turn our brightness all the way up. Whoa, you can see that affects our coral there too as it gets really bright. Kind of wonky. And then the lightness as well. This is as you expect. This is just how much light is being let into the image. All the way black, all the way white, somewhere in between. So we can do this with any of these layers too. So if I wanted to go to my city layer here, I click on it, I go to image, adjustments. Now I can change some of these too. So let's see, I'm going to go over to where it says, let's go with vibrance for right now. All right, so let's see how vibrant we want this to be. You guys see how it kind of changes there? I actually like it to be kind of vibrant. Those dark colors look good. You can also turn the saturation up and down as well. If you made some changes but you don't want to change them, then you can just press reset and it'll take you right back to where you were. So now that we know how to cut out different pieces of pictures and change the different colors, hues, saturation, you guys can make some crazy collages. Doing those two things alone can create some really interesting projects. The last thing that I want to show you guys is how to save. Since we're working with different layers in Photoshop, sometimes you might want to save as those different layers. I'll explain more how to do that in just a second. All right, so the last thing we want to do is save this image. I have my super wonky image here. I think it looks fantastic, and I'm going to go ahead and save it now. To do that, I'm going to go up to File, and then Save as a PSD. Now, a PSD is basically a Photoshop file. That means when I save this, it's actually going to save all of these different layers here. It's going to remember which layer is which. Unlike if I went to, if I went to File and then Export, if I export it as a JPEG, then it's not going to come out as different layers. It's going to come out as just one photo, right? So let's go ahead and save this for right now. See it downloaded down here. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and you'll see our photo here. Now, one thing you'll notice is it's a little bit pixelated. That happens a little bit with raster images. See how it's just a little pixelated? Sometimes it's difficult to maintain the quality of your image. So when we're working with images, try to find images that are higher quality. Some of these fish are actually pretty low quality fish, but that's okay. So I saved it as a JPEG. Now I'm also going to save it as a PSD. Save as PSD. And there it goes. Now what I can actually do, if I wanted to reload the page, go ahead and reload the page. I can go File, Open, and then I can, this is the PSD that we had just had. See how it says Adobe Photoshop? That's the type of file. A PSG is a Adobe Photoshop file. So I'm going to go ahead and open that, and we'll see that we're right back exactly where we started with all of our different layers and images and everything. So if you guys are done with your image, you guys can save it as a JPEG. If you guys want to continue working on your image for more time, then save it as a PSD and you can open it back up in Photopea. We've gone over how to do selections in Photoshop. We've gone over how to change colors and brightness and contrast, and we've gone over how to save in Photoshop. Those are some of the fundamentals of Photoshop. Of course, this gets a lot more complicated, and there's a lot of tools that we didn't even get to use. We're going to continue using some more of those next time as we start to create posters and flyers and different kinds of graphic design things. So that's all I have for today. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are staying safe. This has been Education Technology Professionals. I will see you guys again next week. Thank you.